Right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome and thank you for attending the AGM for the East Midlands branch tonight. It's great to have you on board, and we'll try and keep the AGM as brief as possible, and then we'll go straight into the Catch the Wave presentation by the Vice President, and it's good to see him tonight, Mr. David Gold. So we'll say welcome to David and hand over to him a little bit later after our AGM.
Thank you.
What I'd like to say is just to go through the agenda and keep it as short and as sharp as possible, so it's not getting too boring for everybody. As I say, it's great to see everybody, and I've got an apologies for absence tonight, and we have a few. Philip Lancashire, I don't think could make it. He's one of the new ones. We've got James Richardson, James Carter, and Galena Hobson, all very busy people, as we all are, but they can't make it tonight. So we take their apologies. Thank you for that. Can I just have a proposer and a seconder for the minutes of the last AGM, please? Yeah, I'll propose. Thank you. And a seconder for the minutes from last year, if I may. Anybody? Jem, thank you, Gemma. All right, looking at the report from last year, what I'd like to say, you know, it's been strange times with the COVID one way or another. We all know that. We've all had some very strange experiences. And because of that, in this last year in particular, we started off really fantastic, in a fantastic way as the East Midlands branch. And I think we led from the front, really. Man, I would say that. But we was having 2 meetings a month, which was great. And we had some fantastic attendance with it and a variety of subject matter and topics, and with some great speakers. And then moving forward, then Zoom, you know, we've got into nearly a year and a half of Zoom at this point, and then it did tail off a little bit, which was expected because we hear of Zoom fatigue, and we know Zoom can be quite stale at times because it's quite a sterile sort of medium, if you want. Well, then we got to the face-to-face, the trials in January, February, March, and we had our first face-to-face, which on the legal update, at the Novotel, Nottingham/Derby, and it was absolute a roaring success, I felt. And the place was buzzing. You know, we had over, I think it was around about 110 there, and it was lively. And there was lots of questions over the legal update, and people was really enjoying getting back to face-to-face, having that network again. So looking and moving forward, we're hoping to, we're already planning, just for those that's here tonight, and we'll be advertising this as well, sort of face-to-face on a quarterly basis. Hopefully this will be approved by IOSH, but we are working on some events already. So keep your eyes open on the LinkedIn and on the mailers as they come out from the East Mids branch, and share it with your friends as well to get them to come to them once we've, and hopefully been successful with a future face-to-face. We've got a dedicated team of exec members as well that work really hard, and will be working hard again to make sure that we've got the blended approach with the Zoom meetings that we want to be planning in. And we're going to be looking and trying to focus on the competency framework a little bit as well, and looking at the softer skills, because we know everybody's sort of interested in the technical side, but when you look at the competency framework, there's a lot there that we need to bring out and give it to you as our members. So please watch the space on that one also. So really on that, I would just like to go over to the principal officers' reports, really. And if I can come to you first, Colin, as our secretary, if you'd just like to give us some feedback on that, please.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Alan. So over the last 12 months, we've had quite an active committee. Obviously, the whole committee was elected last year. We've had a couple of sort of step up or stand-in positions because the way the voting has worked. So for the last 12 months, Andrew Deacon has been stepping up as vice chair, who was originally elected as treasurer. That has left a space for treasurer, and so Gemma Hallifield has basically been stepping up as treasurer for the last 12 months. In addition to that, about 3 months ago, Rizilla stepped down from the communications role, and Andy Hook stepped up to cover that sort of role since, well, just before Christmas. So that's the main sort of activities that have taken place so far over the last 12 months. Obviously, we've had the elections recently, so I can go through those in a few minutes' time if you wish.
Yeah, yes, please, yeah. So if we can go to the Treasurer's report, Gemma, if you can give us a bit of feedback on the Treasurer's role now, that'd be nice. Thank you.
Obviously, as Alan's just mentioned, we've been having a bit of a strange way of doing these meetings over the last 18 months. And with everything being on Zoom, we've not needed to spend any money. So I should have decided that the way they're going to do it in future is to put a business case together rather than holding a budget for us to be able to spend. So what I will be doing going forward is proposing the spend for our branch rather than allocating it. So I will put to IOSH for everything we want. So if anybody has anything in particular that I think could be really great, email it into us, because I can then use that in the business case for why we need to have more face-to-face sessions and why we need to have sandwiches instead of just tea and biscuits. That sort of thing. There were very good sandwiches at the legal update. Yeah, so it's a little bit different. Very strange role to have over the last 12 months, but looking forward to doing it for the next few. And I'd say be taking everybody's recommendations if you have any.
Thank you, Gemma. And I will say you've probably underplayed it a little bit, because moving forward, Gem, I know with the business cases, it's not a 2-minute job. So there's a lot of work to be done there. So don't underestimate the work that you've got and you've got to do with this role. So thanks for that anyway. And so that takes us to you then, Andy. Andy Hook with your comms as the comms role, please.
Hello, hi everybody. Hopefully some of you have seen me before hanging around. Not in a dodgy way, obviously, but yeah, obviously as Colin mentioned, obviously I've taken on obviously the comms role now, been doing that for a good few months now, since I think it's around about Christmas time or just after. Hopefully some of you at least will have seen some of the bits that we've been putting out on social media and etc. Hopefully, that stuff works. Hopefully you guys, of course, if you've got any ideas, anything that you'd like to see, or if there's anything that you think you could see less of, hopefully I'm not drowning you all with the stuff that we've been putting out. But yeah, we've managed to grow the LinkedIn following now. We're now just hit 513 when I last checked, just before the meeting on LinkedIn, which is quite a huge growth on what we did have, and 559 on Twitter as well. So we've got a reasonable following on both of those. And currently the mailer numbers is sitting at 2,081. So there's still a fair few people that are receiving the mailers that are not following us on the social channels yet. I would urge any of you that are not following us on LinkedIn and Twitter to consider doing so. Obviously, I do try and put out as many things as I can, information about the events, but also other little bits of information about things that are happening as well. So yeah, that's the comms role really. There's not really much more I can say. If anybody has got any ideas similar to what Gemma said, for comms and how we can reach people, just drop us a line. Thanks very much.
Thank you for that, Andy. And I will say, you've done a great job, mate, with the LinkedIn, and the way the numbers have gone up now is absolutely fantastic. And what I will say to all our members out there, following both Gemma's comments and Andy's, please remember, we're servants of you as our committee member, as a committee. We want your input. We're here to serve you. So please, if you've got any ideas for any events, whatever it may be, any presentations, any special talks, let us know, and we'll try to do our best to serve you and bring up something that will help you as best as it can with your CPD, working through the categories for membership, etc. And keep watching the spaces on that one with regards to the grades review and the IPD and CPD as it moves along. So thanks for that. So if I can go back to Colin, please, with regards to the new committee members, I'll hand over to Colin again. Thanks, Colin.
Thank you, Alan. So just in terms of principal officers, so the principal officers who remain in place voted on last year is obviously Alan as chair and myself as secretary. So there was places available for election, and they were for the vice chair and the comms officer. So for vice chair, Andrew Deacon was elected. So I don't know if Andrew's there, can wave, or there he is, yet. So Deacon's not the vice chair. He was previously obviously treasurer, so he stepped down from that particular role. Comms officer is now Andy Hook, who obviously just spoken, so you all just met him. So we currently have a vacancy for treasurer, but that won't get voted on for election until next year. So from our existing committee, Gemma has stepped forward again to act as treasurer over the next 12 months. Okay, so that's the principal officer roles. In terms of the committee, I say a lot of the committee we voted on last year. There's been one person resign or step down last year, and that's Mark Creed. So thanks for his efforts over the last number of years. And then there was an election for people who wanted to step up onto the committee, and we got 3 new additions. So that's Graham Burns. I don't know if they're in the room today. Oh, sorry, yes, sorry, yeah, I can see Graham waving. Yeah, welcome, Philip Hallgate. Can't see that, and I think we just give us apologies, Philip Lancashire. So we've pretty much now got a full committee, and obviously full serving officers, apart from obviously the treasurer role, which is still as a step up. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, Colin. Can I just say, Gemma, that thanks again for stepping up and standing in as the treasurer, and then again for this year. And I mean, if you do a cracking job and you go for it after, it means you've got an extended period, because you'll have a 2-year role if you get volunteered next year. So keep smiling. So thank you. Thanks, Gemma. On a serious note, I really appreciate that. Thank you. Right, the next little bit on the agenda, we're nearly at the end of the AGM in the sense and the format that it runs as now. It is really about the regs that we work to. It's confirmation of the district section representatives to the branch exec committee, which we've just done, and now it's the regulations. As you probably, well, the committee knows, but for the rest of you that's attending tonight, obviously regulation 15 is the one that really pertains to us. There was a slight change or two last year. There's been no changes this year whatsoever. And then moving forward, of course, as an exec team, we have to work closely with regulation 15. And the volunteers code, we all have to sign up for that. So we have to make sure that we understand and we follow the volunteers code carefully. And of course, lastly and not least, is the IOSH code of conduct, of course, which we all strive to work to and uphold. So on that note, I'd say thank you very much. Unless there's any other business, and I've got nothing else to add on that one, unless anybody else has, please hold your hand up or give a shout or something. Taking that as probably as a no as I'm scrolling along. No. So that's good then. Thank you very much. So we'll get down to a bit more interesting business, more than the AGM. So look at Catch the Wave, and I would like to say good evening and welcome to David Gold, please, and we look forward to your presentation. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you can see my screen as a speaker. I'm going to turn on the presentation in a moment. But just by way of introduction, I think I've seen many of you before at a previous presentation. I know some faces, I know some names. And I just want to do one thing here. I'm going to just simply rename myself on the screen. And I have a title, but everyone knows me as Dave. So please, Dr. David Gold is something we use in different circles, but to my friends and colleagues in IOSH, I'm Dave, and I'd like to keep it that way. Anyway, I am a vice president of IOSH. I'm one of the presidential team. I've been a member of the presidential team for 2 years. I'm in my 3rd year of service as a member of the presidential team. And because I'm a member of the presidential team, I'm also a member of council. I've been with IOSH for almost 10 years. And I've worked my way up the ladder being a safety and health professional. Just by way of a little bit of background for you, because I think it's going to link to the presentation. I've been a safety and health professional for more than 40 years, 23 years of which I served as an official, a senior official of the International Labor Office, which is the United Nations specialized agency responsible for occupational safety and health worldwide. So my job is part of a team of approximately, would vary between 10 and 15 people. was to work with governments, employers, workers, and organizations around the world to try to strengthen occupational safety and health in different countries, with different trade unions, with different workers' organizations, with different institutions, such as IOSH, to try to build this concept of occupational safety and health. I want to give you another little bit of my background before I do that, and that is regarding Catch the Wave. I'm a man of the sea. I was brought up, even though I live in Switzerland, I was brought up in Massachusetts, in a village called Swampscott, Massachusetts, which is north of Boston. Those of you that may know some of the geography of the United States, Boston is on the sea. Swampscott, my village, was a fishing town. And as a young man with ankle deep in the North Atlantic Ocean, I realized that you're more on the channel side of things, but ankle deep in the North Atlantic Ocean, we did a lot of things. We sailed, we did scuba diving, we did snorkeling, we worked lobster boats, we worked fishing boats. And one of the things we also enjoyed was 3 or 4 different types of surfing. And one type of surfing was with a board, one type of surfing was with a sail, wind surfing. I've never done kite surfing, but the analogy of catching the wave is something that becomes important to me. As a man of the sea, the environment is very important. The idea of sustainability is very important, but the idea of doing something and having some momentum and following through with that momentum is something that I absolutely live with. So I hope, Alan, you don't mind that I've introduced myself that way. And one more thing before I turn on the presentation, which is very important, is I would like to congratulate the people that have continued on the committee and also the new committee. The role of the branches for us on the presidential team is extremely important. This is geographic representation of the institution of occupational safety and health. And being able to work together with fellow is probably not a gender neutral word, but collegially with men and women that are sharing this profession becomes extremely important. And the ability of branches to meet on a regular basis and to share successes, to share practices, to share some of the tacit knowledge that we develop in the profession, this becomes very, very critical. And one of the things that I want to share with you tonight is this initiative developed by our institution that hopefully will shed some light on the issue of sustainability and the way that IOSH is addressing this issue of sustainability. By the way, Ines Hawkinson, I noticed that you greeted me in German. So guten Abend, Ines. But in this part of Switzerland, we speak 4 languages in Switzerland. We speak French. In Switzerland, we also have a dialect of German, which perhaps is different than many others speak, which is called Schweizerdeutsch, which is another language that I speak. But I appreciate the welcome as a Swiss American. So without further ado, Alan, with your permission, I'll move into the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, good. And please don't hesitate if you have any questions to go into the chat room and ask them. I'm also happy with a group. We're 35 people. If you want to go open mic later on, that's fine too. Any way that we want to work this thing I'm very, very comfortable with this. So my presentation should last approximately 30 minutes, and we should have additional time for questions. I am willing, if it's okay with the chair, to stay on a little bit longer if the questions last a little bit longer, but I realize I'm also backing up or edging into your dinner time or your tea time. That's understandable. So let me make sure if someone could just say something to me, give me a yes or a no. Do I have the screen?
You do, yes.
We catch the wave, the big screen.
Yes, you have.
Okay, good. So let's talk about this whole idea of catch the wave. Okay, catch the wave is for us, is for IOSH. When I say us, I'm talking about us, the safety and health professionals, the safety and health practitioners in the Institution of Occupational Safety and Health, but even in a broader sense, the safety and health professionals around the world. And we need to constantly think about the vision of our institution, and that is to drive a safer and healthier world of work. And I will even go beyond that, because a lot of us, there's been a catchphrase that has evolved over the years that we want to see everyone in the world of work come home safely at the end of every day. So it's not only the world of work, but I want to extend it perhaps just a little bit further, that we get home safe, and our communities are safe, where we live is safe, our schools are safe. I think all of this becomes part of this issue of sustainability. But Catch the Wave is an initiative for the occupational safety and health profession, and all professionals to accelerate the vision, if you like, by focusing on people. And we're going to be focusing on social sustainability post-COVID in a new world of work. Now, I'm going to stop my presentation just for a second. I'm going to ask you to turn on your cameras just for a second, if you don't mind. Okay, I see a couple of cameras switching on. Please go to visual. I want to see your faces for a second, if you don't mind. I want to be able to read something in your faces, if I may. Beside being involved in the engineering of safety and health, I'm also a safety and health educator. So I like to be able to look at people when I'm talking to them for a second. And I would like to ask you, maybe using the reaction button on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, could you give me a reaction? And there are different reactions that you have. If you understand, you know, for example, a thumbs up, if you understand the word sustainability. Could you click a reaction button, such as a thumbs up or an okay, if you understand the term sustainability? Okay, most of you have clicked on it, but some of you haven't. Let me ask several of you, and we can go open mic, you can unmute yourself. I don't think I need to unmute you. What do we mean by the word sustainability? How do we define this concept of sustainability? Everybody's throwing it around, but what does it really mean? Does anybody want to volunteer to help with this definition? Just even if you're wrong, that's fine. I don't mind, but let's just get the ideas on the table.
Managed longevity.
Okay. One way of looking at it is long-term and longevity. And I'm going to come to that in a few minutes, because Gro Harlem Brundtland, who was the Director General of the World Health Organization in the 1980s, basically talked about sustainability that way. And we in the United Nations talked about sustainability in that way. Is there any other ideas or defining? Terrence, you have your hand up, so go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say it's the way I think of it sometimes is it's about building a momentum.
Okay.
Almost sustainable anything has a momentum, you know, almost self-propelling.
Okay, so it's something that keeps itself going, or
Yeah.
Thanks, Terrence. Other ideas about what is sustainability?
Dave, maybe not taking out more than you put back in, whatever it is in terms of resources.
Not taking out more than you put back in, and I would even dare say, I'll even add to that a little bit, so that future generations can have something later on as well. But that idea of not taking out what you put in, I think this is extremely important. Ian, what is your thought?
So it's a way of operating the business for the benefit of the business and for the world in general, mankind, womankind.
Okay. Good. That gives me some perspective of where we are. I'm wondering if you would take a moment and just jot down on a piece of paper. You don't have to share it with me. You don't have to share it with anyone. What you define as sustainability. And even take another second, if you would, and tell me what you would define as social sustainability. Because
Are we talking about the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN, the 15,
well,
17, if you want to talk about that?
That is certainly related to it, but I'd like to get your definition. I'm going to be covering those in just a moment. But in essence, you're right on cue here. You're segueing me into the next part of the presentation. But what is your personal, if someone would say, if your kid would say to you, you did a presentation, there was a presentation, Catch the Wave, and it had to do with sustainability, and they said, what is sustainability? How would you say it in a few words that someone would understand that? And this becomes important. Okay. And now the second part is, what is social sustainability? Okay. Because there are different types of sustainability and people will have definitions. So with that, if you've had a second to jot a few words down, and hopefully at the end, and please someone remind me if for some reason I forget, please remind me, and let's come back to this afterwards and see if there's a difference in your thinking when we come back. So I'm going to click, and hopefully I will go immediately back to my presentation. Okay. So when we talk about harnessing the power of sustainability, we're talking about part of our job. We're talking about all professionals, as I said before. We're focusing on people. We need to look at people. We're looking at people perhaps to a certain extent in a new light. We're looking at people from the perspective of post-COVID, and in many ways, a new world of work. So we talk about social sustainability in a new world of work, but some people would challenge, and it wasn't you guys that are challenging, but some people would challenge and say, well, you know, in my company, when we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about environment, we're talking about the planet. So we have safety and health and sustainability as three entities. But in the new world of work, sustainability means the balance of people, planet, and profit. So if you look to my screen, on the left-hand side of the screen, you see social sustainability is one element. Environment or planet is the second element. And the third element is indeed the economic or the profit side. So we're talking in a sense about a triple bottom line, which was a phrase that was coined by this guy, John Ellington. And John thought that, he's even stated that Catch the Wave is a vital step in rebalancing sustainability in a world where we focus on people and indeed the broader society. We consider people at work and the role occupational safety and health plays in their daily life. And IOSH recognizes our responsibility as safety and health professionals, as our member institution, as our professional institution. We recognize the responsibility to influences business, because we also know that social sustainability has an impact on the employer and on the wider society. And Catch the Wave was launched as a vehicle to educate employers how to harness this to be a force for good. So this is the concept of Catch the Wave. Many of you have seen, or perhaps even read, a very, in my mind, a very basic fundamental publication by IOSH, which is called The Healthy Profit. I have it on my bookshelf. I've read it and I really appreciate it. And the IOSH report, which was written in 2018, said that IOSH was not seen by most businesses as an essential part of success We, IOSH, argued that investments in and commitments to OSH boosted organizational performance, productivity, and profitability. And this aligned with global changes already starting to happen. But if we think about this number that we have in front of us, 31%, and I'm going to read to you, safety and health professionals are considered to be a central component in creating a positive, productive work culture by only 31% of business leaders in 2018. And less than a third say they are essential to the success of business. So this is the situation that we were faced with. Now, one of the things in 1985, when I joined the United Nations, and we already heard a little bit about the United Nations Compact and the idea of the Sustainable Development Goals, we had an interesting situation in 1985 where a very, very dynamic woman, and Gro Harlem Brundtland, at that point in time, medical doctor, prime minister or former prime minister of Norway, and also the director general of the World Health Organization, started to talk about sustainability. And one of the things that she mentioned in talking about this is that we need to present, as said a few minutes ago, the present needs without compromising on the needs of future generations to meet their own needs. And we had, as I heard a few minutes ago, and I appreciate the fact that you understood this clearly, we had a mandate in the United Nations system. So when I went to work in Thailand, or I went to work in Cape Town, Africa, or when I went to work, for example, in Suriname as a safety and health professional, one of the things that we were supposed to ask ourselves, and we did ask ourselves regularly from time to time, is when we go there for 2 weeks and try to leave, to build something, to strengthen something, what is the possibility that the people that we were trying to influence will continue to do this into the future? What will we be leaving behind? What changes could we make that would be, quote, sustainable? Now, that was in 1985, and this developed to a certain extent into the United Nations Compact. And you can see in the United Nations Compact, there is already the idea of promoting gender equality and empowering women. They're already talking about ensuring environmental sustainability, but it led to something even broader, which were the Millennium Sustainable Development Goals. And if you look at the 17 goals on this slide, right away, something that should jump out at you is good health and well-being. Another one that should jump out at you is decent work and economic growth. Another one that jumps out is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. So what we're doing has a direct relation to that. All decent work and economic growth, all of these are quite important to what we're trying to do and what we're trying to think about. I'd like to give you a little bit of thought to another movement that was established. It was established, I believe, and I could be corrected on this, in Europe, but it was established also as part of the Global Compact, and that is the idea of corporate social responsibility, of CSR. When I was first exposed to CSR in the 1980s, people said, corporate social responsibility, that's interesting. It's ethical, it's financial, it's societal, it's environmental. And we can help make the world a better place if we follow it. But the initial ideas with many employers for corporate social responsibility was to think about how the organization, how the workplace influenced what's going on outside of the walls, extramural. And so how we were doing something good for the community where we were working, how we were doing something good for the people around the plant or around the organization we were working. That was one perspective, and it was a European perspective of CSR in the 1980s. Meanwhile, globally, they changed that focus and they included occupational safety and health as part of this corporate social responsibility, and encouraging businesses to take a shared responsibility for achieving things in a better way. 15,000 organizations in 165 countries supported this initiative of corporate social responsibility.
There are still some issues though, Dave, around some of the principles of things like carbon offsetting and trading between countries and so forth, which sometimes can hide it and not, or encourage people to not actually take proper action because they're offsetting it rather than avoiding it. I did my IEMA qualification a couple of years ago, so a lot of that seems kind of resound, but there are still too many backholes and loops for people to avoid taking real action, unfortunately.
You know, it's a very interesting comment, and I think, you know, we have an expression when someone climbs a mountain, when someone is actually doing high angle climbing, and they have a decent handhold, they have a decent foothold, and they don't want to move. And if I could just bring that analogy back to what you're saying, sustainability, when it was linked in many people's minds only to the environment, people grabbed that foothold and they grabbed that handhold. They didn't want to move beyond that. They didn't want to think beyond that scope. And I think that's what you're mentioning, that there is, people felt that they were in a safe zone at this point in time. And they didn't want to really think about something on a broader context. And what we're trying to do with the whole concept of catch the wave is to try to influence, continue to influence beyond the scope of the traditional concept of sustainability into something that basically is meeting additional needs. And most importantly, and I hope I've answered your concern, most importantly, we've seen that COVID, perhaps as powerful as anything else that's emerged over in the past, in the recent past, has created certain demands in the workplace. And it's accelerated, to a certain extent, calls to repay the trust placed in people to keep businesses and essential services from moving forward or going through in a time of crisis. The world has certainly changed as a result of COVID. And catch the wave is something that we can work with. Catch the wave is something that we can use as a way of starting to make people aware, at least initially. Now, we're going to share other tools with you in the near future. This is an introductory presentation, but later on in the presentation, I'll share other things with you as well. One of the things that you'll see, for example, is that consumers are starting to play a different role as a result of what happened in COVID-19. We see continued pressures to grow, but for example, if you look at the left side, the left picture, we're seeing that consumers want more seasonal products and more locally produced products. We're also seeing that consumers want to stop purchasing certain brands because they had an unethical, or there was a lack of sustainability, and that concerned them. And if we also look at 5 environmental practices or environmentally sustainable practices or ethical practices, we see that people are more and more concerned about waste reduction, reducing the carbon footprint, as was just mentioned a moment ago, producing sustainable packaging. And now we come to a little bit more of the social dynamic, committing to ethical work practices and also respecting human rights. So now we're starting to dive a little bit into this issue of social sustainability. We also know from a variety of different reports that the investor community, the financial stakeholders in many companies, are actually crying out for better environmental, social, and governance practices to demonstrate evidence of sustainable practices related to these strategic development goals and other emerging issues. So people are now starting outside of the scope of safety and health, outside of the scope of where they normally were, but people are starting to drive this concept, if you like. Even asset managers are concerned about the risk to financial growth if people have not practiced responsible investing and therefore sustainable investing. So IOSH basically has a vision for action. IOSH recognizes these changes, and we're, as an institution, at the forefront of setting a vision for action for employers, workers, and governments, regulators, and safety and health professionals. So as an institution, as our institution, this is a great moment for us. And this is something we can use and something we can promote locally, nationally, internationally, as a vision to take action for social sustainability. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to share a movie with you. Someone speak up if they don't hear, please, the audio. I think you'll have a full blast of the audio in a minute. So I will play the movie. It will just last a couple of minutes. So let's take a look at a perspective of Catch the Wave.
There's an unstoppable wave of change moving across the global business landscape, cascading through boardrooms, sending ripples through supply chains and beyond. It's time to catch the wave. The COVID-19 pandemic, climate crisis, and rise of social justice movements around the world have all accelerated thinking beyond the here and now. What does it mean to be a responsible, sustainable, resilient business built on solid environmental, social, and governance principles? It all starts with people. It's no coincidence that those businesses setting high standards for the treatment of their workforces, communities, and supply chains reap rewards with stronger performance and growth. Our connected world expects organizations to prioritize public good and behave responsibly. Employees and customers will call out poor working conditions and demand better. But this is not just about doing the right thing. Social sustainability is the backbone of corporate resilience. It supports stronger operational performance and cash flow. And right now, that feels more critical than ever. The environment has been the flagship cause driving the corporate sustainability agenda. Now it's time to put people alongside planet and profit, to unlock and unleash the tremendous value that lies in our global workforce. IOSH is working alongside international organizations, including UN agencies and initiatives, such as the World Health Organization, ILO, and UN Global Compact to harness the collective energy of progressive businesses. Together, we're making a long-term commitment to drive social sustainability forward, with a global force of safety and health professionals making change happen on the ground. Because safer environments and enlightened attitudes to health and well-being, diversity and inclusion are all safety and health issues too. And COVID-19 has shown just how vital it is to protect people. If businesses are not just to survive, but thrive. Together, we can be part of a global network of resilient, profitable businesses and organizations that flourish equitably and sustainably around safe, healthy workforces. It's time for a new world of work. It's time to catch the wave with IOSH.
Now, let's think about ourselves as the safety and health professionals that we are. Let's think of ourselves as an enabler. And let's think about the role of the Institution of Occupational Safety and Health. And I think everywhere I've worked around the world, in different parts of the world, we see that there is a way of looking at occupational safety and health as an enabler, even though we are not always directly part of line management. We see in this particular graphic that the board or the leadership of a company has one arm that looks at operational management and the workforce, another arm that looks at occupational safety and health and the workforce. And hopefully that there is also a link between these arms and that we can work together on this issue of sustainability. I have a sincere hope as IOSH, as the safety and health professional, as leaders recognize the contributions that the workforce has made. They've engaged with COVID-19, to a certain extent, the safety and health professional, to ensure people's health. And the discussions are going on more and more at a higher level. So a lot of discussions are going on in the C-suite, and a lot of my colleagues, a lot of people I've been working with over the years have found themselves more and more in the C-suite to start looking at sustainable development goals. They weren't necessarily called sustainable development goals, but they were certainly looking at the connection between the boards, the operational managers, and the wider workforce. Now, I don't want you to try to study this diagram. I don't want you to try to memorize this diagram. Look on the left side. And in the middle of the left side, you'll see something that is called worker safety and health. And here you have working conditions and management system. You have, and this is interesting that this surfaces in this diagram, family health. You have supply chain issues. You have employee morale, and you have natural resources. And they all seem to come together and focus on this worker safety and health as a springboard or as a vehicle where we can start addressing this as safety and health professionals. And this leads with other issues into this, this six-sided figure, this hexagon, I think is the right word, looking at society, environment, and the economy. But it also develops and strengthens the whole concept of human welfare, not just in the UK, but in many different parts of the world. We have to think about that there are winds of change. We have to think about that some of these winds of change, as we just heard a moment ago, we've had someone attest to this, sometimes it prompts resistance, sometimes it prompts complacency. People find a zone of comfort and they want to stay in that zone of comfort. And there is an expression which is called VUCA or VUCA, which is called volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Benison Nanus, basically in 1987, coined this. And they're basically saying that this is something we find in the business world, and we need to try to avoid older, outdated approaches to management, to leadership, and to day-to-day activities. We need to try to promote something that's positive and something that is changing. So the transition requires tools to achieve the Catch the Wave campaign. And we're building research papers, we're building webinars, we're building free downloadable materials, and a suite of sustainable training courses for leaders, for managers, as well as for workers. The timetable for these activities are listed here, but we don't finish in December 2022. For the OSH professional and the OSH profession, this year, 2022, is just the beginning. And we've already started to realize our own visions for action inspired by the Catch the Wave program. a woman from South Africa, from Joburg or Johannesburg, basically, when she was exposed to the Catch the Wave program, she said that it instilled in her a sense of purpose. And there's a critical word, there's several critical words here. Health and safety is an integral part of a company's sustainability journal. And as a safety and health professional, I strive, and I hope you strive, for the full integration of safety and health into everything we do. And Sheena basically said, it's my objective to ensure that people, and more specifically the need for safer and healthier working environments, are elevated and represented on the sustainability agenda for her organization to fulfill the necessary social need. Leaders and advocates, and we are leaders and we are advocates, we need to demonstrate a pivotal contribution of the worker, of worker safety and health and well-being to the long-term values as a worthy investment. As I bring this to conclusion, let me try to capture Catch the Wave in one sentence. Catch the Wave post-COVID is a call for action for all employers of every size to recognize your role in harnessing the power of your people by reaching out to the occupational safety and health professionals who operate at the heart of every community. So you have a challenge as an occupational safety and health professional to respond to the growth of sustainable activities, socially sustainable activities, as part of your role. So here are a few steps, and you can record this instead of trying to copy it down now, but you'll be able to see the recording of today's webinar of different elements of the different landmarks so far. But you'll also see, for example, that we're talking about a training course. We're talking about the training course that's called Beyond Compliance. We're talking about an ebook that is being developed titled Wave Generation, a model to approach socially sustainable safety and health. And then we're looking at some bite-sized courses, the first two entitled Catch the Wave People, and the second Catch the Wave Work and Environment, that will be looking at the future. Now, I want to share with you, and I realize I'm running out of time very quickly here. I want to just share with you an idea. I told you that in my youth, a while back, I surfed. I surfed on the North Atlantic Ocean. I surfed in a couple of other places as well. And we'd be sitting in wetsuits on top of a surfboard, maybe 50, 70 yards off the waterline, off the shoreline. And we'd be sitting there and we'd be watching the waves start to roll in. And the more experienced surfers talked to the less experienced surfers and said, let's watch the waves. The wave comes in sets. Normally there's sets of 3, but let's get the right one. Now, why did we want to get the right one? Why did we want to catch the perfect wave if we could catch the perfect wave? Because we wanted to be able to get on that wave. We wanted to ride that wave for a long time and get the thrill, get the adrenal surge of being able to sit on top of that wave and enjoy the success of being able to surf that wave. But before we could climb up the back of that wave and just get over the lip and aim our surfboard in a certain way, we needed to catch that wave. So this presentation basically is an initiative to start to get thinking about catching the wave. And then we need to go a little further on how to ride that wave. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to stop here. I realize we have a few minutes, but I am more than happy to stay longer if anybody wants to discuss this further. Alan, let me turn this back to you, but I'm also more than happy to go open mic and answer any questions that anyone may have. And I'll stop sharing at this point. Hopefully. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a lot of stuff there and food for thought moving forward. Has anybody any questions, please? I mean, just feel free, as David said, use an open mic, just forward your question in, please. Although there might be some coming up on the chat function as well as I'm looking.
I see that Ines, thank you, Ines, again, for coming forward. And Ines has suggested collaborating with IEMA. And I will certainly forward that request back to IOSH And I think I'm sure that collaboration is probably there. I'm not aware to the extent the links are there. But I'm more than happy to bring that forward. Pat McLaughlin says the problem highlighted by consumer demand side is that it requires action by someone else, not the person stating their opinion. Will those same people stop having 3 to 5 deliveries a day from their online shopping, or be happy that the delivery van might be better battery powered? Yeah, it's a good comment, you know, and I think we need to start changing the way we think somewhere. You know, we need to start making a pivotal change. I think Pat's comment is truly an environmental concern, both as far as the burning of fossil fuels, as well as, you know, do we need to do all of these things that we're doing as consumers at the same time? And it's something we need to think about. We need to start somewhere, though. And from the workplace, we do have a vehicle, we do have a venue where we can get started somewhere and start to make some changes. Other questions, other comments? Mic is open. You're happy to, I'm happy to entertain more questions, entertain more thoughts. A lot of materials are going to be coming your way. This is just an introduction. I know that the East Midlands is a branch that is very active in the safety and health community. And it's a branch that I'm sure will start performing very, very well as far as some of this Catch the Wave initiative is concerned. I have all the confidence in the world in your branch, Alan.
Thank you. I hope so. Can I just ask the presentation, David? Will it be available on the networks for access to our members?
Actually, the recording has been made.
Right. Yes.
And that is something you should go through your liaison officer to see if you can get a copy of the presentation. Right now, it's the presidential team that's delivering it.
Okay.
But I think in the near future, it will be on a broader basis. Now, let me go back and ask the question. And again, I know I'm edging up on your dinner time, but let me go back and ask the question. I asked you to define sustainable before and what you thought sustainability was. Anybody have any reflections? And I'm not going to call on people, but if anybody have any reflections on, did you change your mind based on what you've heard in this presentation? Do you see a broader definition of sustainability? Do you see something that is maybe means something a little different than what you had in the back of your mind? And if that is indeed the case, maybe is there anybody that has had a change? Has there been a landmark change for any of you regarding after seeing the presentation?
And I think the only thing for me, that I say the only thing, it's not the only thing really, but what I do see is that clearly it's interlinked with 2 or 3 areas, of course, doesn't it? And one depends on the other, you know. And I'm finding this difficult to express really, but like with one of the slides where you show it interlinked and interwoven in the centre there, you know, with the 3 circles and the 3 aspects of those, that clearly interacts with all the others. As health and safety professionals, taking that forward, we've got to look at that in all the ways that we possibly can, because everything depends on everything else. That's probably the best way to sum it up. Everything depends on everything else, and that each aspect has to be sustainable in its own right for the overall success of sustainability. I know what I mean, but I haven't said it very well. Hopefully you can grasp what I'm saying.
You said it fine. Let me be so bold and add a caveat to that. One of the things that we hear a lot of people talking about is what is the role of culture in sustainability? And if you take these 3 pillars of sustainability that we're talking about, culture is the foundation on which these 3 pillars are built. Now, over the past 15, 20, 25 years, we've been addressing this issue of a safety and health culture. Okay, sustainability has a role in that. Sustainability is building especially social sustainability, it's looking at the value of the human being. And if the culture can embrace this idea of looking at the value of the human being, we're stronger. Mm-hmm. We're very much stronger. And not only that, but it reinforces our profession in the boardroom, okay, as was seen during COVID-19.
Yeah.
Other questions? Go ahead, Alan.
No, I was going to say, has anybody else got anything they want to ask David while there's the opportunity, please?
I think my question would be about governmental policy and also implementation translated down to local councils and their policies, because they've got those ideas, let's say, with green initiatives, but the infrastructure just simply isn't there, and things just simply don't take too long. And then I think from a corporate perspective, so I've done my IEMA qualification a couple of years ago, which is obviously institute, which is specific there for kind of sustainability and so forth going forward. And there's also major issues similarly again with translating those kind of things down from the highest level, and I'm talking VP level at organizations and corporations, down to the level that the likes of myself, let's say, is working at. I've worked as a process engineer in manufacturing environments, moved across to health and safety later on. And over the last few years, it's always been a struggle in terms of payback, any initiatives you want to do. You've got to try and inspire people, but nonetheless, unless you can bring that business case in terms of payback, it's difficult to realize that. One recent example could be we've been looking at LED replacements because we've got really old lighting in massive factory settings. And it's only really now through the last year and a half that where energy prices have gone through the roof, that where we can realize a quicker payback, that suddenly we get certain projects, approved that from an environmental and long-term sustainability perspective would have already made sense 5 years ago. So there seems to just be this big kind of disconnect. So the likes of my levels, we're going on those courses, we're doing those qualifications, we're trying it from the bottom up. But I think there's a lot of work to be done somehow to also apply maybe more pressure or provide more incentive from the top down.
Ines, again, for the third time this evening, I very much appreciate your remarks and appreciate your thoughts. You have a way of delving intellectually or diving to a certain depth in some of the concepts that are coming through. And one of the things I learned as an official of the International Labour Office, the ILO is a unique organization because it sits on a three-legged stool. One leg is employers, one leg is government, and one leg is workers. And we found that when we can get all three of these people working together to design a social compact to make a change, and the change happens and the change becomes more sustainable. That was a lesson we learned in every part of the world. It wasn't something that was specifically English or Swiss or American. It was something that we found even in the least developed countries or the most economically poor countries of the world, that when employers, workers, and governments worked hand in hand and worked from the national level to the local level, then we saw change, and we saw change to be effective. So as an institution, we need to figure out how to build these collaborations. We need to work across different organizations. We need to build tunnels instead of silos to make this sort of thing happen. And the more we can spread the word, the more effective we are going to be. I don't have an easy answer for you. I think your observation is valid, but it's something which needs to be driven by governments, by different organizations, such as our own institution, and to build this going forward. I hope you don't think I'm just giving lip service to what you're saying. I think what you're saying is very, very valid, and I thank you very much for it. We also have, Terrence said, culture is the $64,000 question, and you're absolutely right. I think if these three pillars are not standing on a solid foundation, the foundation of culture, okay, then there is a weakness in the three pillars. I think we need to figure out how to do that. One of the other things that, and I saw Philip Cash is written, and I'm fascinated by this. I think that's what I saw, yeah. Phyllis says, our business in defense is talking target zero. Thinking sustainability is all about carbon. This broadens out thinking, so looking forward to more literature from my seniors. One of the things that I sometimes worry about when we talk about zero or target zero is that sometimes we're looking behind us. We're looking what the performance is. To put it into to terms that most business leaders understands, we're being reactive rather than proactive. And one of the things we need to think about in social sustainability is how can we be proactive? Not necessarily looking at the things that have happened in the past, but how can we build a future so that, as was defined earlier by one of your colleagues on this call, that we're looking at something where we're moving forward in a positive way. So we're leaving a legacy for future generations. And I think that becomes very positive, very important as we move forward. Alan, back to you.
Right, thank you very much for that, David. Just a quick one. Has anybody else got any more questions with the open mic as opposed to the chat function while David's available, please? I'm just having a quick look. No hands or nobody chipping in. Well, can I say thank you very much for your presentation, David? It's very interesting, I have to say. And as East Midlands branch, I'm sure we'll be looking at that moving forward with our new committee to look at, to put something together and be quite active and proactive with regards to this. So thank you very much for giving your time up in the presentation, and look forward to when it is available for us all. Once the message has got out there to more of the branches and the groups within the organisation, of IOSH. So thank you very much for your time. Much
You're
appreciated.
Welcome. Don't hesitate to contact me. My email address, I'll give you my personal email address. It's david.gold.48@gmail.com. So it's my name, david.gold.48@gmail.com. So if you have any questions, or if you want to join me through LinkedIn, I'd be more than happy to talk about that and to respond to any questions that you might have on an individual basis. You can also write to the presidential team coordinator is a very, very dynamic person, Sunita Patel, and sunita.patel@iosh.com. She coordinates our activities. So she might also be able to add something to the equation, or contact me if you don't contact me through a less formal channel.
Okay.
Let me wish you all well. Be safe. Again, congratulations to the new board and the existing board. And hopefully sometime in the near future, we'll meet up face to face.
Thank you once again for your time. Much appreciated, David. It really is. And can I say thank you to our members for attending tonight, and hope you've got plenty to take away with you. And thank you for supporting the AGM this evening as well. Can I just ask, please, that the remaining committee members, if they would like just to stay on for 10 minutes, we'll have a bit of a catch up, ready for our next meeting on the 7th of March, if that's okay, please. And say good night to everyone else. So thank you very much.